All right, hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are in activewear because I just went for an easy run with a friend because that is the season of running that I'm in, but that was a bug. That's not what we're here to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about 10 things that I've learned as a 10-time marathon runner who's just completed her 10th marathon a few weeks ago. And I wanted to make this video because as someone who has not had the most perfect journey in marathons, like, yes, I've gotten faster, but the journey has not been linear by any means. I have plateaued at times, and there were times where I really questioned running. I got injured at one point, and I want to talk about all of my tips in one video. So let's talk about the 10 things that I wish that I knew when I first started running marathons. You'll have to excuse me because my hay fever, well, I've never had hay fever and it's actually the worst ever, and I'm discovering that I have hay fever for the first time ever at 29. But my first tip is that not all training plans are created equal. So just because you can find a free 16-week training plan online or through any sort of apps doesn't mean that it's the perfect one for you. I know that having a coach or having a professional actually write a plan for you adds sort of a financial element to it. And I know that that's not available to everyone. But as someone who used to use free training plans online and who has sort of learned over the years and had a coach for a few years, I've definitely learned that not every training plan is like perfect for you. And I also learned mistakes from following certain like free training plans where the paces weren't suited to me. So you really have to find one that works best for you, one that also fits your schedule and allows for enough time for you to recover and just works around your schedule, whether you are a parent or you go to school full time or work full time. And I think that takes some time, but I would definitely just say be patient and find the one that will work best for you. My second tip and second thing that I really wish that I knew before I started running marathons is that quantity does not always equal the right answer. And I'm of the opinion that quality is actually better than quantity. And what I'm referring to is mileage. I think for a little bit, I got very caught up in the idea that if I ran more volume, that I would be a better runner. And I'm not saying that doesn't work for everyone. I know that definitely does work for some people, but I think if you actually really check and see, does that actually work for you? Does that actually agree with your body? No, then let's prioritize some quality sessions. And I think that this can be done really well when you're really taking your easy runs easy and then giving yourself the full ability to be able to really dial into those quality sessions and really not necessarily give it your all, but give it about 80 to 90% and really be able to push yourself so that you can get faster in those sessions and really work on those paces. But yeah, as someone who last year really thought that higher mileage was like the right answer and peaked at I think around 60 something miles, and that being like the most that I've ever peaked at, I've actually learned that peaking at 50 is actually perfect for me, and I sit more comfortably around like the 40-mile range, and I'll peak at 50 and then come back down. But I feel like I've just learned from trial and error that just sort of works best for me. So I'd say test the waters, see what works best for you, but don't just always copy and paste someone else's training, especially if, say, volume works for them. It may not always work for you. Okay, tip number 3, and the third thing that I wish that I knew is that food is fuel. It's not a reward for how much training you're doing, how much running you're doing. And I think that underfueling is a big issue, as many of us know, in the distance running space. And it's an issue that I feel very passionate about, especially as someone who went through an eating disorder and recovered from it and took 2 years to regain her period. There are a number of long-term effects that I don't think that people, especially women, realize when it comes to underfueling. And I think that this is something that really does take some of us, me included, a long time to learn through trial and error, like I said, and you really start to feel the effects of what it means to fuel your performance when you actually start to live up to that and actually like own that. And I think that when you learn how vital carbs are for your performance, not just on race day, but throughout training, and how really topping up those glycogen stores and how that is the body's main source of fueling when it comes to, or preferred source of fueling when it comes to training and running on race day, you'll learn just how important it is to really hone in on your nutrition and make sure that you are eating enough carbs and that you are also refueling with protein so that your muscles can recover. There is just so much that goes into it, rest included, and I think that it's something that I definitely didn't fully understand at first, and I think it takes some time to fully understand just how much you need to eat in order to fuel a marathon training block. But it's something that I'm so glad that I have now learned over time, because I truly think that it has completely changed my training and taken me to the next level. The fourth thing that I've learned when it comes to marathon running is that strength training is actually your best friend. I know that it's the thing that runners love to hate on, but it actually supplements your running so well, especially coming from someone who didn't strength train and then got injured and now strength trains religiously, especially also does her physio work. I think it's so important and vital. Even just 1 to 2 sessions a week can truly make such a difference in your just overall training, but also just makes you feel so much stronger come race day. I truly felt a huge difference overall in just how I felt, in my form, and especially when you start to feel that fatigue on race day, you'll feel just like the lack of strength in your legs and your back and your core, and being able to like continue to hold yourself up when you're running in like miles 20 to 24. But when you start strength training, and especially if you choose to follow a runner strength guide like I have, I think that it really helps work on those certain areas and really helps you strengthen those muscles that you don't even realize you have, or you don't even realize you need to work on, but actually are some of the biggest muscles that are pushing you through the marathon come race day. I think that this is also just so vital, especially like for women when we are approaching our 30s. I think that there's some sort of statistic or something that I'll put on the screen that I read somewhere, that that it's harder to develop muscle after 30. And so as a 29-year-old, I've been definitely trying to prioritize strength a lot more, and I've just seen such a difference in my running. I feel so much more different in my form, in the sense that I just feel stronger, and I feel like I can run and rely on my body to go further for longer. And I think it just also gives you even more confidence to feel that much stronger in your running and know that that strength is a supplementary part of your training routine. Tip number 5, your marathon is just one part of the story. It's literally just one chapter in your book of marathon training. I think a lot of us, myself included, place a lot of emphasis on race day, and with that you obviously feel a lot more anxious and you feel a lot more pressure to perform really well on that day. But actually I think that it's so much more than just race day. Like marathon training, the early mornings, going out when it's raining, when you really don't want to, when you're training for a spring marathon and you're training through the winter, and those dark mornings, that's always super tough. The paces that you miss and workouts that you eventually build up to and are able to conquer, I think that that is all so much more important than one singular day. And I think that that one day, whether it goes well, whether it doesn't go well, it doesn't define who you are as a runner. It doesn't define what your training has amounted to. And like, I feel like even coming off of a really strong training block, just because I didn't have a good day on race day, that doesn't mean that I'm a bad runner. That doesn't mean that I wasn't ready. I think that it was just a bad day come race day, and a lot of people felt that. But I think that ultimately at the end of the day, like I said in my previous video, I think it's so important to be able to come away from a marathon, whether you feel that it went well or badly, and firstly give yourself 24 hours to feel the feelings and just let yourself kind of soak that in, but then be able to actually take away a couple of learnings that you can take with you into your next training block. And I do strongly feel that every single marathon, each of my 10 marathons, has taught me something different that has kind of just transformed me and formed me into the runner that I am today. So I definitely think that we don't need to be putting so much pressure on ourselves with the marathon, but I know that I am still working on that myself, but it's just something that I think is a good reminder. Okay, tip number 6 is that your mental health will 100% be tested, and I really truly didn't realize that. I think that it's so easy to come into running and think like running is a form of therapy, running helps me unplug, running is good for my brain, but I think that for me at least, like when it came to really getting into trying to run faster paces, trying to get faster in certain distances, it tends to put a lot of pressure on yourself. And I think that for me, in 2023 to 2024, I became very, very obsessed with trying to get better and trying to get faster. And I do feel that that actually led to me having a bit of a negative, I guess, like mentality around that. And I was just quite harsh on myself. I was really hard on myself if I didn't hit paces. I was really hard on myself if I didn't have a good workout. And I truly believed at that time that like each workout was so important and that like I couldn't afford to have a bad workout. And so there's a bee. I just think that it's important to acknowledge that obviously running can help your mental health, but I would never go as far as to say that like marathon training completely makes me a happy-go-lucky person. It definitely tests you, obviously all the early mornings included, and just like going for those runs when you don't want to. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, you obviously do learn something and you build a tougher mentality for it. Like, no one is able to get through a marathon without having a really strong sense of self-belief, grit, and just the ability to push through when you really don't want to. And so with this tip, I would say if you need the extra rest day during the week, take it, because in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to take away from your marathon training. It's not going to make you any less fit. And at the end of the day, I think it's important to take care of your brain just as much as you were taking care of your body. Okay, tip number 7, and this one is one that is still one that I really struggle with, and that is that not every marathon will be a PR. I think that this applies for like all races in general, but you guys know, if you've been following me and subscribed here for a little bit, in 2024, I plateaued. I didn't PB anything. It felt like crap. I didn't feel good as a runner, and I think that ultimately now, coming out the other side and having had run a couple PBs under my belt now, you know, it's really easy to let these PBs define you and define whether you're good at the sport, whether you're good at running. But there are a number of issues that I just didn't realize can even come into account. And famously, for my Chicago 2023 marathon PB, I ate the wrong type of oatmeal on race day, and I paid for it for that entire race. Nearly that entire race, I did not feel well. You know, weather plays a huge factor, whether people like to admit it or not. GI issues, like there are so many things, the list goes on, and a lot of these things are unfortunately out of our control. And so I really like to do, like I mentioned in my video where I talked about things that a sports psychologist helped me in preparation for a race to kind of work with my anxiety, is that doing things like mapping out like what actually is in your control, what's not in your control, and making that sort of known before you even approach race day can be really helpful. But I think it's just, you need to realize, and I still need to realize, that PRs don't define you. It doesn't define you as a runner. And this is sort of related to a point that I made earlier. But yeah, the marathon PBs come and go, but it just makes for those ones that will come to be that much sweeter. And I know that the day that I go sub 3:30, it's gonna feel amazing, and I'm gonna know that it took so much hard work to get here. So yeah. Tip number 8, rest days are also training days. I think that oftentimes we might look at some of the elite runners and realize that they might go 10 days at a time without any rest days and think, oh, maybe I should be taking less rest days. But actually, rest days are super supplementary to your overall training, and they not only help you recover faster, but they also help you run faster. It doesn't just come from the workouts. If your body is feeling broken and unable to continue on, then that's only going to lead to just worse outcomes with your body and just your overall training. And so actually prioritizing rest, prioritizing sleep, and at least getting 7 to 8 hours a night has been so pivotal in my overall running journey. I used to be someone who thought I could get away with 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and that is just not the case at all. And so I think that it's really, really important to take rest days when needed. And just to kind of piggyback off of this as well, I think taking off seasons is always really helpful in the grand scheme of things, especially if you, like me, want to continue running marathons for a long time. Then you need to prioritize taking off seasons, giving your body time off, not training for things year round, and just allowing your body time to recover, time to just chill, time to run when it wants, to not run when it wants, and just actually prioritize doing other activities and other things that make you happy. Because I think at the end of the day, we never want to get to a place where we resent running or we resent the sport. I think think I always want to come to it knowing that I can find joy in the sport, that I can find joy in running, and knowing that it's always going to make me happy, and it's always going to be my safe space where I can feel my most self, my most happy self. And so in order to do that, I also need to take breaks like I'm doing now. And honestly, it's been so nice to just run when I want and, stop when I want to stop, and not really have a certain mileage or a certain distance or certain workout that I'm really aiming to hit. And so yeah, it's so much fun to just chill and take breaks, and resting is so important, and sleep will change your life, I promise. Okay, tip number 9 is to invest in some good gear, but keep it simple. And I know that some of you might think that that is rich coming from me, who is someone who is very fortunate to be able to receive product. I promise, I give it away to friends and family whenever I don't need it, because I do feel like sometimes too much is too much. But I will die on the hill that having a good pair of trainers is super important, one that you've gone to do a running gait analysis so that someone can actually assess the way that you run and your form in the way that you run. The way that your foot hits the floor is so important and just crucial in your overall running health. And just as a runner, I think it's so important to think about how shoes can support you and not just buy the same shoe that everyone is wearing at the moment. There's a reason why Hoka's don't work for me anymore, because they definitely do hurt me, but I know that for some people they work really well. Another thing that I think is super important, especially as a female, is having a really good sports bra. And I'm someone who loves a sports bra with pockets, and I know that that is not something that comes often, but I have just over the years learned that sometimes if you invest a little more in some of your running gear so that they can last longer, and just so that you're investing in better quality, it can definitely just help overall. And for me, like, if I've got a couple good pieces that I really love, that I know are good quality, that I've invested in, I will just wear it over and over, because I can look at my drawer of like running clothes and finisher t-shirts, and sometimes I just want to wear the really good tops and the really good shorts that I know are going to support me for whatever run I'm going on, whether that's a training run or just an easy run. And yeah, I don't know, to me, I think that that's just so much better than investing in a couple of like cheaper things, and then they might like wear and tear very quickly, and then before you know it, you have to buy a new pair of shoes or a new sports bra or a new pair of shorts. But yeah, I think that it can be really helpful, and just the longevity of running as a sport. And finally, tip number 10 is that your relationship with running will change over time. I've almost been distance running for 5 years and counting, coming this August, and I feel like I've changed so much, not only as a runner, but just in what my priorities are as a runner. And, at first it might be that you just want to run for the joy of it, you're just wanting to get to the finish line, and then you might get really into pacing and wanting to run faster, and you might get really into that, and you start reading up more on running. And then you might finally arrive somewhere where I'm trying to arrive, where I'm trying to still find the balance between joy and still pushing the pace and trying to get the most out of myself as a runner, and still really pushing towards big goals. I think that over the almost 5 years, it's been really cool to kind of see myself change, but also just like not even just as a runner, but also as a person, because I think that so many things that you learn in running can be applied to everyday life. And so yeah, I think that it's been a really cool 5 years where I've learned a lot about myself. And when I first ran my very first marathon, it used to be something where I just wanted to take it off as a part of a bucket list sort of goal, and I never ever thought that I would be here having run my 10th marathon and celebrating that and sharing these tips with you. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you took away something from it. If you did, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and comment below what sorts of videos you'd like to see from me next. I do have some exciting adventures and sort of new running challenges come summer, new terrains, and we're taking a break from the roads, just to give a little hint, but I'm really excited to share that with you. So make sure to subscribe, because I come out with a new video every single week. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.